here's who I need to be loved by all these people. Before I knew it, I had built this brand of this girl that was so far from who I really was. Mm-hmm. And that spiraled into like a really, really deep depression because I was like, I knew who I was and I knew that that wasn't it. And I was so far in the hole that I couldn't get myself out.
Welcome back, crafted entrepreneurs. In this episode, I'm joined by Jen Gottlieb. She's a powerhouse entrepreneur, international speaker, host of the I Dare You podcast, and co-founder of Super Connector Media. It's an award-winning training, events, and online education company. She had a successful 5-year stint as a VH1 host and a career as a Broadway actress. And I'm not done yet. She's been making waves in the entrepreneur space for quite some time, teaching people how to be seen and be the recognized expert in their field. And she is now an author of the new book, Be Seen. And we're going to talk about that today. I am so excited to have Jen Gottlieb on the show today. Welcome.
I'm so excited to be here.
I needed a drum roll right now.
I feel like we can add that in.
I know, right?
We really needed it, but it's all good. I'm so grateful to be sitting with you, that you're in New York and we're here doing this together. So fun.
So I'm excited because we have this book right here. It's beautiful. And this is like your baby that you've birthed into the world. But I want to take everybody back to the time before you were the nation's top speaker and, before you sold your company and before you were a VH1 host. Who was Jen then?
Oh, even before VH1.
Oh,
so
yeah.
way
I want to
back.
go all the way back.
So like childhood, like little Jen. Okay.
I love little Jen.
Little Jen. She was a handful. I always joke that if I have kids, like God's going to give me a crazy experience because I was the kid where if you came over to my house, I was pulling you into the living room. I had my table that I would stand on and do a show for you. And you would sit down and you would be quiet and you would watch my show. Mm-hmm. I was a performer. From the moment I came out of my mom's womb, I was like, see me, look at me, see me, look at me. I just loved entertaining people. I loved it. I was so outgoing. I was so unapologetic. Like, you're going to look at me. I don't care if my belly's hanging out. I never brushed my hair. I was so loud and obnoxious. And I would sing and dance for everyone. That was who I was at my core of my being. Mm-hmm. And then when I was like middle school time, when everything kind of
changed.
Yeah. Mm. And you have kids, so I'm sure you watched maybe a little bit of this transformation start to happen, but it was kind of like 10x'd for me because that was around 14. My parents got divorced. My dad was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and my whole like quote unquote perfect world, because I had a really wonderful, loving family. I still do, but everything was really not so good at that moment in time. Mm-hmm. And for a girl that was growing up in a house where everyone was like, yes, you're so special, you're so wonderful. And then all of a sudden everything kind of went away because understandably so, my parents were just doing the best that they could in order to do their own life and make themselves okay. I really rebelled and I really lost myself. And I really started to try to be seen like in school. And that meant for me, like, how do I be cool? How do I fit in? And I stopped being like different Jen and out there Jen and like the girl that wanted to sing and dance and perform. And I did everything that I possibly could to fit in with like the cool kids. I talk about this a lot in the book. Like I went from being like a tomboy and like, not a care in the world about what I looked like and what I dressed to wearing like so much makeup and like the Sophie shorts that you rolled 4 times and you put on like the black lip liner. And that was me in school. And I developed a serious eating disorder and I was a really lost kid. And it took a while for me to find her again, a long time, like not just like after middle school, like I'm talking into my adulthood to really find that girl again.
So talk to me about that process of finding yourself again, because I think a lot of people can relate to suppressing who they are because they don't realize that everybody's a black sheep. Mm-hmm. Nobody is meant to fit in because we're unique, right? But somewhere along the way, we start to just believe these lies, that we need to be like her.
Yeah, all the shoulds. Like I should look this way so I can fit in. I should have a life like this. And that followed me into my young adulthood and my acting career. And that was when in that metal show, the thing you were talking about, I was on VH1 for 5 years. I was on a TV show about heavy metal music. I don't like heavy metal music. I never did. I was an actress and I was auditioning and I got this gig to be this heavy metal girl. And before that, I had been traveling the country with a Broadway show where I played like a rocker chick. So
wow.
I was Linda in The Wedding Singer.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah. So I was like, great, I could play this part. So I get this gig. And before I know it, I did the same thing that I was doing in middle school. I was like, okay, here's who I need to be loved by all these people. I have to dress like a metal girl. I have to pretend I like metal music. I have to take all these sexy photos and post them online. And before I knew it, I had built this brand of this girl that was so far from who I really was. Mm-hmm. And that spiraled into like a really, really deep depression because I was like, I knew who I was and I knew that that wasn't it. And I was so far in the hole that I couldn't get myself out.
Mm-hmm. But you did.
The question you asked me was how, I know I'm getting to the question. I had to tell that part of the story was how did I find myself? Well, I was forced to because everything kind of got taken away in like one fell swoop where the show got canceled. The guy that I was dating left me for one of my friends and I had nothing and I was forced to figure it out. And I didn't figure it out immediately, but over a process of really having to basically like tear it all down in order to build it back up, I started to ask myself like, who was I before all of this happened? Mm-hmm. And I started to look back I watched like old home videos of like the little girl that I used to be. And I did a lot of inner child work. I did a lot of therapy. I did a lot of personal development. Like I found myself on the floor of Barnes & Noble reading every book under the sun. I am a student of personal development, full on, listening to podcasts. And I'm like, who am I? And I just started allowing myself to step into being that person and allow myself to be seen as that person, like 50%, like I'll go even further, 51%, like a little bit more than I didn't. And the more that I did it, the more that I realized, whoa, cool stuff happens when you allow yourself to be seen. Yeah. And then I developed a little bit more confidence to do it a little bit more. And I built a business that was built around fitness and personal training, which is what I really enjoyed. And I started pivoting the message and I started to learn how to brand myself as me and how to do publicity and like how to get myself out there and how to sell and how to market. And I started building this business and it started to feel really fun and really in alignment. And the more that you do, the more clarity you get. And so the more that I built it, the more clear I became and the more I allowed myself to be a little bit more vulnerable each time. And there's so much stuff in between, but I guess that's really how we got here.
Yeah. But it's interesting how a lot of people have these rock bottom moments. And that was yours, right? You lost everything. And then it makes you go, okay, what do I really want? What is it that I really want in my life? And you're like having to be brave every step. And I think what it sounds like to me is you didn't put the pressure on yourself to get it right out of the gate. You know what I mean? To like just shoot a home run. You were just like, let me see what I like again. Let me try. And having that mindset of trying, I think is important if you're in a transitional phase and you're trying to figure it out.
Totally. Like there's a whole thing in the book where we talk about you don't have to believe 100%. You don't have to know 100% because I feel like we're always going to have a little bit of doubt, a little bit of fear, a little bit of uncertainty. Always. Maybe sometimes we'll get to like 88%, 90%. Like we're like, I know this is it. Let's go. I've got the momentum. But sometimes we are literally just at like, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm scared. I'm vulnerable. I'm not sure it's going to work, but I'm going to try it. And I'm at like 51% of belief right now, but let's just go. And you take action. And then that action step creates a little win, whether that win is the outcome that you wanted, or maybe it's a different outcome that you didn't even know you were going to get. Maybe it's an outcome you didn't want, but it taught you something and it taught you that you can follow through. And one of the really ironic, crazy stories about this whole thing was when I was at the lowest low point. Like I ended up moving into this tiny little apartment with like 6 other actors and I had this little window and it faced a brick wall. I went from living in like a beautiful penthouse apartment with this guy and then like living in this tiny little hole. And I wish, Cayla, that I could tell you that I was like, I'm going to personal development myself right out of this and I know exactly what I'm going to do and I'm going to be great. I didn't. I was so depressed. I couldn't get out of bed. My mom had to come into the city and my mom is very much into personal development. And at that time, I was not. This was before I had ever listened to a podcast. I didn't even know like what a gratitude list was. I was like, no, Mom, no thank you with all of your woo-woo stuff.
Yeah.
But she gave me this book and it's called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay.
Oh my gosh, I love that book.
Amazing book, full of affirmations. If you have any kind of ailment, physical, mental, whatever, there's an affirmation that you can say. So I look at this book and I'm like, no, Mom, I'm not going to read this book. And she knew. My mom is so smart. So she photocopied one of the affirmations And on the back of the photocopy, she wrote, Jenny, I hope you find yourself again. And so I open this book, I read this piece of paper that comes out of this book. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to read this book. I'm not ready for that yet. But I will commit to reading this one affirmation every single day. It was the first commitment I ever made to myself and stuck to. And I stuck it on my refrigerator, and every morning I would look at the thing, and even if I didn't feel like it, I would read it. And sometimes I would read it and I'd be like, this is bullshit, whatever. Yeah. And sometimes I would read it and it would give me a little bit of hope. I don't know if it was the words in the affirmation or if it was the affirmation itself or was the act of reading that every day and keeping a commitment I made to myself and saying yes to myself, taking action, even though I didn't know if I believed in it, if it was going to work. That really kickstarted some momentum and got me to get out of my apartment. It got me to walking around New York City, looking for jobs, figuring out what I wanted to do. And if you come full circle, connecting the dots backwards, Hay House published this book. Louise Hay wrote You Can Heal Your Life.
Yep.
And when we were having meetings with publishers, it was like the last meeting on the list of who we were going to meet with. And I get on this call and all of a sudden this story comes back to me because I was like, oh, Louise Hay has been a part of my life forever. And I'm like, wait, this was the thing. Mm-hmm. It was this affirmation. Everybody's crying. Like, oh my gosh. Of course they were the ones that are supposed to publish it.
That's
and
amazing.
I just love that story.
I'm obsessed with that too, because Louise Hay, her story is she started Hay House in her late 50s. Mm-hmm. Well, it's so crazy. And you just did a viral reel on this where it's like, it's not too late.
Yep.
You know, there's all of these stories if we just look around, but we got to get out of the bed and get into the city. You know what I mean? We got to take those actions. And so, wow, your mom is amazing for doing that. She knew just that one little nugget just shows that if you have people in your life, like, wow. And
so important.
People listening, and you could be that person for somebody.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's just the little things that could change somebody's life forever.
You never know. And that's why I wrote a book called Be Seen. Because there are so many people that if they did not make themselves visible to me on the internet, I wouldn't be sitting here today. If they were like too insecure or too obsessed with the way they looked or too afraid or stayed hiding, like, oh no, I can't do that. That I'm not good enough for that. Like, no, I don't like the way that I look on camera. And they decided that they didn't want to be seen. Maybe I wouldn't have changed my life. Maybe I wouldn't be sitting here. Maybe we wouldn't have met each other.
Right.
Like, it's your responsibility to make yourself visible to the people that you can help.
Absolutely.
You never know. You could say one thing that completely shifts somebody's day and makes them show up in a different way. And then they could help other people, and it's a whole snowball effect.
I feel convicted.
Good.
I feel like I'm at church right now.
Good.
So you've pivoted so much in your journey. And I want to point that out because I think a lot of people don't give themselves permission to pivot, even though it's time. Like, you know, the VH1 host and Broadway, like, you know, people would say, oh, well, why don't you just stay on that track and keep going in that career? But you're like, I want more. I want happiness. So tell me about the mindset that somebody can cultivate to really like go, you know what? I'm worthy of more. I want something different.
Yeah. It's okay to be a human being and want something different. I think everyone is very hard on themselves. I think the first thing is compassion and self-love for being exactly who you are. Human beings are made to evolve. We're made to evolve. We're made to shift. And I think that a lot of us, and I did this so much, we fall into this trap of the shoulds. Oh no, my life should look like this because everybody else wants this from me. And this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have this and then this and then this and then this. And just, you should be happy with that.
Right.
Right. But we feel a calling. And if you're listening to this podcast, I have a feeling that you feel the calling or you wouldn't be listening to Cayla and podcasts like this, that there's something more for you, that you're made for more. And that calling was not placed inside of you for no reason.
Right.
That calling was placed inside of you. Be it, I believe this, and everybody can have their own belief, but because you have a responsibility to showcase those special talents and the special things about you to the world so that you can create more impact. And if you're listening to this right now and you're like, yes, I feel it. And if you feel it a little bit more even when those words are being said to you, then that means you need to get up and not figure out the whole thing. You don't need to know the answer. You don't need to know what the end goal looks like. You don't need to know the whole path to get there. But all you really have to do is start just planting the seeds, taking the steps, little tiny steps, listening a little bit more to your intuition and daring yourself a little bit. I have a whole section in the book about dare of the day. And a big part of why my life changed was because I started daring myself to do things.
Ooh.
I would give myself dares of the day all the time. I'm like, okay, like if I felt any kind of like gut intuition, I'll do this still to this day. Like, let's say I'm walking by somebody. This happened. Oh my God, this is a great example. I've never talked about this, obviously, because it just happened, but it's a great story. I have a gym in my building that I work out in every day. And there's this lovely girl who sits behind the desk. And every day I see her and she's so sweet and like has the best energy. And I always want to say to her, you're amazing. You always make me feel good. You have such great energy, but I never said it. I was just like, oh, she doesn't want to hear that. She's busy, you know, like many of us always do. The other day I walked past her and I'm like, and I got that feeling in my gut that I needed to say something to her. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, Jenny, that's your dare of the day. And the dare of the day means that the second that your intuition says you got to do it, you got to do it, or there's like a consequence. I don't know what the consequence is, but it's just like, I cannot
because you always do it.
I can't not do the dare of the day. It's like a very big deal. So I said to her, I'm like, you want to know something? You're amazing. Like your energy is incredible. I absolutely love walking by you every day because you actually make me feel better when I come into this gym. You do a really good job at your job. And she said, oh my God, I've been following you on Instagram forever. You don't understand. You just made my whole day because you just said hi to me. Can I tell you how much your content has impacted my life? I had no idea she followed me on Instagram.
Right.
You know, and she was probably nervous to talk to me because she didn't want to bother me, and I didn't want to bother her. But then we had this beautiful connection and she was so happy that I talked to her. And now we have this great friendship. You never know. So if you dare yourself to take that little action step, even just that little conversation that we had made my day better because it made me feel good because I know I helped her. She helped me. We had that lovely moment of connection. Yes. I know people are actually watching my stuff. It's helping them.
Right.
You know?
Go make that real.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that story so much because you doing that, like who knows where she's going to end up? Mm-hmm. You might catapult her success or her journey in some way because you just gave her that confidence.
Maybe.
Boost. You know,
Who
maybe.
knows?
You never know. I just speak that into existence.
Yeah. Maybe she goes home and she acts a little bit differently to her family today. Mm-hmm. And then maybe because of that, they go and do something amazing or treat somebody else incredibly well.
Yep. Well, I think it's important because we sometimes say things like that are the small things that don't matter, but those are the things that actually matter. Mm-hmm. Doing them over and over and over again, listening to your intuition and just saying yes to you. Like that's also saying, okay, I trust myself that if my gut is telling me this, I trust myself, I'm going to do it.
Yep.
And then what does that do? Builds confidence for all these people that want to be seen. I mean,
the confidence continuum, that's in the book.
I wanted to ask you about the confidence continuum.
Let's do it.
Tell me a little bit about it.
That's exactly what it is. So you were just perfect in explaining it, but I'll go into it a little bit deeper. And I'll use an example of something that I know my readers struggle with. I know this, you guys, because you tell me in the DMs and all of our community members also. Just going live on social media is a very scary, vulnerable thing for a new business owner or somebody that is creating their brand for the first time, has never really put out video, right? That's the scariest thing because there's no script. You got to pray that someone's going to show up.
You're going to get instant feedback too.
Instant. And you just got to be exactly where you are, who you are in that moment. And that is vulnerable and scary. Mm-hmm. So the confidence continuum, the way that it works is it creates confidence over time. If you're not a confident person, I want to just let you know that confidence can be built. But unfortunately, it is very uncomfortable to build confidence. That's the whole point. Because if it was easy to become confident, everybody in the world would like be a ripped billionaire. Like everyone would have an 8-pack and billions of dollars if it was easy, but it's not, it's hard. So we need to take that scary action step. So the way that the confidence continuum works is, let's say you're really scared to go live on Instagram. You've never done it before. You're absolutely petrified. You've got zero confidence. Well, you got to take that first action step because the way that you take away the power that fear has over you is by doing the thing you're afraid to do. You're not going to be fearless. It's never going to happen, but you can become more courageous. And the way that you do that is to be like, all right, fear, I'm going to give you the finger. I'm going to say F you. And you're going to you're going to be in the car with me. You're going to be in the passenger seat. We're going to drive together and I'm going to do this stupid live, even though I'm petrified to do it. You get some friends involved. You text Cayla, you text me, say, can you just join my live really quick? Whatever. Somebody in your life that can support you. You get community involved. You get them on there. You do it for 3 minutes. It sucks. It was scary. It was painful. You hated every second of it. But here's what happens. You get off of that live and you feel a little bit better than you did when you started because you did something hard. You put your little coin in the confidence bank. You get that little dopamine hit. Well, I did it. That wasn't that bad. I didn't die. Nothing terrible happened. Okay. So now you have a little bit more confidence. Maybe you're not completely like totally courageous, but you're a little bit more confident. So when you go to do it the next day, you do it again. And this time it takes a little bit less like time to actually press the button. You're like, maybe it takes 20 minutes instead of 30 minutes to actually press the button. Then you go live, you do it. Maybe you do it for 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes. Maybe like 10 people join instead of 4 people. Okay. And then you get off. Then maybe someone DMs you and they say, thank you so much for going live and what you said, it really made my day. Whoa. Then you get a big win. Then it's like, that's a big dopamine hit. Okay, maybe going live is actually kind of fun and good things happen. So then you develop something really cool called motivation. Then you're motivated because good things happen when you do the hard thing. So then you do it again, more confidence the next time. Then you get a bigger win. Somebody's like, how can I work with you? Oh, then you make some money. Whoa, I am going to do lives every single day. And that is how you develop confidence.
Yes. Oh my goodness. We just got the formula, people. I mean, this is what you're teaching people to do on a daily basis. You realize so many people struggle with this. But for you personally, like right now in this moment in time, what is the hardest part about being seen for you?
There is so many hard parts. And I know you're going to be going through this soon, so I can't wait to chat about this in real time with you. I don't think enough authors talk about this. And I think it's really important and very meta because I wrote the book called Be Seen and I teach you how to be seen. And it is unbelievably scary to be launching this book into the world right now. It is. And I knew it. The reason I wrote it was because I knew it was going to force me to be seen on a whole other level. But I didn't know how much the symptoms of fear were going to attack me when I did this. And the symptoms of fear are in the book, imposter syndrome, comparison, perfectionism, analysis paralysis, all of these things that hit us really hard when we're stretching and we're growing, they are there. Okay.
Well, it's just so final. That's the thing, right? About the book. Don't you think so?
It's very final. And what's crazy, and I've asked a lot of authors about this because I read my Audible recently. So I wrote the book a year ago. And then I read the Audible, I actually read the whole thing all the way through in a booth last month. And when I was done, the whole time, I just kept saying to the guy, can I pause and add something here? Because I wouldn't say it like this right now. I would actually say something a little different and I would add in a different story. He's like, no, just read it. And I'm I called my friends that have written books. I'm like, I want to change a lot of my book. They're totally normal. Because over a year you evolve, you change, the way you communicate changes, the stories that you have change, and that's okay. So I have this mindset now where this was a snapshot of my life. All of the things that are in this book are completely huge lessons and pieces of my life that I learned and that I totally believe in. And the second book will be, and the addition to this is all of these new things that I've evolved into learning and growing. So you need to understand that, yes, it's final, but books are supposed to be watching your evolution.
Okay.
But it is scary, especially for perfectionists, especially for people that want it to be just so and just right. And there's a lot of, for me, it's the rejection, the worthiness that's tied to, are people going to like it? Are people going to read it? Am I going to sell enough? Am I good enough? Who even really wants to read this book? Am I even that important? Does anybody even really care? And I'm saying this out loud because it's very important for people to understand and know that it might look perfect on social media, but all of these things are going through my brain. And there is not one night that I have not gone to sleep and had a little bit of a loop before I go to bed. That's a little bit of that anxiety loop. What if? But what's helping me so much is actually rereading my own words because I teach all this in the book.
Right, yeah.
I'm learning from myself, which is actually amazing because it's a great case study. I'm okay, I'm actually using these tools. And then reminding myself that I would not be put in this position if it wasn't for a very important reason. And whatever it is, it will be. And if this book helps somebody, one person, I am thrilled. The fact that I published it, it's in the world, it's a thing, I did it. I want to just focus on being proud of myself for that instead of focusing on all the worthiness that's tied into. Doesn't make it easier, still pops up, probably will continue to do so on the entire journey. But these are the things I'm reminding myself of.
Well, I think it's important to have those tools, right? And it's awesome for everybody listening in knowing it doesn't go away.
No.
It doesn't go away. You're going to still battle these things, but you have the right tool in your tool belt to pull it out and say, okay, I'm not going to let this take me down, right? I'm going to go to bed happy. I know that I tried. I did my best to get this book out there, to get the message out there today. And that's all I can do.
Yeah.
And learning to live in that, that is enough today.
100%. That is enough. I am enough. I will give one really powerful tool that's been helping me the most. And it's in the book. The entire third chapter is about it, but I think it really goes along with our conversation. So I want to give your listeners a really tangible tool. And I use it every time I have imposter syndrome, every single time. So I truly believe that a big reason why we get imposter syndrome is because we're spending a lot of time like looking at other people's highlight reel, right? At everybody else's amazing badass moments in their life, all these things that they've done, which is fabulous. That's what social media is for. We're not going to get on social media and just always post about all the horrible things. We're going to share the wins, right? And that's okay. But we need to remember that we're seeing just one side of the story for people. And a lot of the times people are like, well, all the things that I've done are not that great because look at all the things that she's done. But we need to have a reminder. We need to remind ourselves just how badass we are and just how worthy and amazing we are. So I developed this thing by accident with a friend because I was trying to help her, called the Badass List. And it's not just the list that works, it's the way that you use the list. So what I want everybody to do is in your phone, don't write it on paper because we lose paper, put it in your phone, you always have it. I want you to do write a list about all the times in your life when you were a badass. And this could be business or life moments, anything. It could be the littlest moment that no one knows about, but you just felt like, man,
I'm amazing.
I'm amazing. That was amazing. Like, oh my gosh, you gave birth to a human.
Yeah.
Like you gave birth to more than one human. You know, like you have a successful marriage. Like you built a mastermind. You did a podcast. You published a book. Maybe you overcame an illness. Maybe you ran a marathon. Maybe you went to the gym one time when you hadn't been in a year and you were just like, I did it. Whatever it is for you, you make that list. And then anytime you're feeling like an imposter or you can't do something or you're not worthy of doing something or people are going to think that I'm an imposter or whatever these crazy thoughts are that come into our mind that are totally normal, but they are crazy. I want you to read the list out loud as if you were reading it about somebody else. So read it like you're reading it about someone you're FOMOing over on social media.
Wow.
Like someone you're comparing yourself to. Oh, they did this, they did this, they did this, they did this. Whoa, they did this. And then ask yourself, is this person that I'm reading about right now, are they worthy of doing the thing that I'm afraid to do? Yeah, they are. Okay, that person's me. And I have to do that like every single day.
I'm going to do that tonight.
It's really good practice.
That's amazing.
It's really fun.
I love the twist of saying it like in a third person.
Yeah.
That's
the
amazing.
thing that really like solidifies it because it's easy. Like, oh, all these things that I did. Yay. Wait a second. Look at yourself the way other people see you. We forget that.
Absolutely. I love that tool. And I know your book is full of all these amazing tools and your book's going to help so many people. Where can everybody get this?
Well, you can get it anywhere books are sold. It's out there. But if you go to beseenbook.com, so easy, beseenbook.com, all of the different retailers are on that site. There's a little place where you can put your order confirmation in and you can get some gifts from me.
So smart.
That's the easiest place to go.
Yeah. So smart. Okay. So to wrap things up, what is your biggest piece of advice for, those listeners out there who are in a moment where they feel alone in their, journey?
The first thing that I want to say is you're not alone. I know that's not the biggest piece of advice, but you're not alone. You're not alone because look, I just published a book. Like we're sitting here together and we were just having a conversation about like all of these feelings.
Yeah.
Like everybody has these feelings, but I think the number one most important thing that I try to remind myself of every single day is don't compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20. And I know that this is happening. We're getting on the internet and we're seeing somebody that has the podcast or has the show or has the whatever, the fame, the money, the family, whatever it is that you want. And you don't really realize that that person has been working their butt off for years to create that. You don't see the failures. You don't see the mess ups. You don't see all of the tries that they did where it didn't work. You don't see like everything that they went through to get that. You just see the chapter 20 beautiful moment and you're like, you feel alone in your chapter 1. You feel alone in your beginning steps. My therapist said to me when I was talking about the book and all of my mindset issues that are coming up with this book, she goes, have you ever written a book before? And I'm like, no. And she's like, yeah, what's your relationship with being a beginner? And I'm like, oh, I'm a beginner. This is my first book. So if you're listening, maybe this is your first time trying to build a brand. Look at other people that have done it and learn from what they've done. Watch what they've done, study what they've done. But remember when you're scrolling, scroll with caution because those people have probably failed and been rejected a zillion times and probably had a lot of trial and error before they got to where they are. And they're probably still growing and reaching a different, they're probably still a beginner in something as well.
Absolutely.
So just be mindful.
Oh my goodness. I could just listen to you all day. And I know people can because you have the I Dare You podcast, which is amazing. It's like these, do you do interviews or is it a lot of solo?
It's just me.
Yeah. And
I've done like
that.
2 or 3 interviews.
I love that because it's just like they're quick episodes you can listen into and just like get a little Jen dose, you know? You're like, I can go be seen right now. So do our dare of the day after I listen to Jen, right? So people are going to pick up the book. And I think I'm just like so excited for you and this chapter, like just to see how much you've evolved. I met you like 5 years ago and just to see how much you've grown, how many people you've impacted in the world. And even when we were talking about the cover of your book, I was like, I love the cover. And you're like, it's not about me. You know, that's why I'm on the back. It's about the person that's going to read this book. And I have chills saying it, but it's like, you know, you're so convicted in the message that you put out to the world that everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a right to be seen and a responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I want all of our listeners to take away today is share that conviction. You know, like that's why you're so successful is because you are convicted about what you're sharing. And everybody listening in has to get convicted about their message.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're teaching people how to do that.
Thank you, Cayla. That means so much coming from you because I admire you so much. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're in good hands. Just keep listening to it. But I love you. Thank you for having me.
They can add another one on their list.
Yes.
I'll let them know. All right. Thanks you guys so much for listening in. What I want you to do, okay, is I want you to take a screenshot of this episode. I want you to tag me and Jen, and I'm going to pick 10 lucky listeners to get a free copy of Be Seen. So all you need to do is screenshot, tag on YouTube. I want you to do the same thing, comment below your name, and we'll reach out to you and I'll send you out a book. All right. So do it right away.